is Dates and Mates with your host, Damona Hoffman.
Hello, lovers. Welcome to Dates and Mates, your source for modern love advice. We are here to demystify modern love and make it simple for you. It's February, and you know what that means. The Valentine's Day clock is ticking. Tick tock, tick tock. Did you make a plan yet?
I have not yet made a plan, actually, but that is certainly got to be on the horizon soon. Yeah, I know.
Your girl's going to be on your case. You got about a week.
I got to get
your act together.
How about you? Are you already set in stone?
We just made our plan B. Remember, we had our plan,
and
it got messed up.
Through.
So we're going to go wine tasting instead.
Oh, that's fun. Where are you going wine tasting?
Don't you want to know?
I do.
You looking for ideas?
I was like,
You're trying to
write down, taking notes.
It's just a wine bar, and they're doing South African wines, and I thought, well, how romantic.
Yeah, sounds nice.
Sounds nice. So this is a nice show. We're going to have a nice show
today. It's a nice show.
Because I have some special guests joining who will be talking to you about long-term love. Joining me a little later in the show are my in-laws, Lee and Mimi Hoffman, who will be celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary this year. In just a couple weeks, actually. So I'm really excited to have them on the show for the very first time, and they can share their thoughts on how to build a relationship that can stand the test of time.
Maybe give me some Valentine's Day ideas as well.
Well, you can always use the advice, I suppose. We also have some headlines, including stats on Super Bowl swiping and a secret development in Lady Gaga's love life. Plus, famous comedian is dating someone 26 years younger. We'll tell you who it is, and then we'll discuss, is that creepy? And we also have an exclusive look at Match.com's Singles in America study, which just came out today. They do this every year. For the last 8 years, they look at the behavior of singles, and there are some shocking stats in there that I can't wait to share with you. Plus, we have some thought-provoking questions in Technically Dating from you all at home, including how to overcome body image issues. I know that's a challenge for a lot of people who are single and looking, so we'll talk about how to overcome that and how to handle being dumped. You ready, Producer Thomas?
I was born ready.
Let's dish.
Dee's dating dish.
I'm not really one for the Super Bowl. I actually call it the Stupid Bowl.
Zing.
I just had a bunch of people unsubscribe. They're like, this broad doesn't know what she's talking about. I know it's very popular, though. And I say this because I am definitely in the minority here. Not only are people watching the Super Bowl, but they're swiping during the Super Bowl. And when we think about these apps that are location-based, like the Tinders of the world, you have to consider that 1 million people are heading to Minnesota for the bowl, which, thank you for letting me know, was happening in Minnesota. I had no idea. I didn't even know it was Super Bowl Sunday. I was like, oh, yeah, that's good. But I don't want you to miss out just because I don't know anything about sports. I don't want you to miss out because people now are swiping while they're watching the game. And the number of people that were online and messaging was up last year, well, actually in 2015, 50%. And in 2015, there were people swiping, but not like they're swiping now.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see a lot of people trying to snag a date during the Super Bowl time.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're not quite as invested in the game, you got to be looking at your phone anyway. You got to.
You know, that's what we chicks do.
Yeah,
we're like,
time for dating
apps. I'm
apps.
going to go to the Super Bowl party. They're not watching the game.
No.
They're watching you guys. And also, there is something to be said for the fact that now apps are using this location-based technology, which wasn't even the case as much 3 years ago when they originally looked at the numbers. People gather together to watch the Super Bowl, and it creates another opportunity for you to connect with someone, because let's say you think this girl's cute, or maybe you're just really into the game and you didn't notice her, but then it comes up on your Happen app that you cross paths with this person, and then you go, oh yeah, she was at the Super Bowl party that I was at, and then that creates an opening for a conversation. So don't sleep on the Super Bowl. Get in there and get to swiping. Well, Lady Gaga has been keeping a secret from us.
I know. I was surprised by this as well.
Yeah, so we talked about how she got... was she married before, or did she just...
Yeah, I think she went through
engaged?
a pretty messy divorce.
She was married to Taylor Kinney. Okay, so they broke up not that long ago. Maybe a year ago?
Yeah.
Maybe a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Lady Gaga does not waste any time because she's got a new man. And not only are they dating, it turns out they've been engaged since November 1st.
Yeah.
And nobody knew that CAA agent, her agent, Christian Carino, is actually her man now. This, to me, seems like a recipe for disaster, Producer Thomas.
I was going to say married to your manager seems a little iffy. That's what broke up a lot of those famous musical couples of the 70s, right?
Yeah, and then I think, was he just lurking this whole time? Has he just been lurking, waiting for Taylor Kinney to just bite the dust?
A little sticky, I think.
I'm not sure, but he seems to be really into it. And look, we just want Lady Gaga to be happy and to be in a relationship where she's really appreciated. And it seems that he appreciates her a whole lot because he got a tattoo of her face.
Yeah, I know. That's dedication.
Yeah, like, I'm going to go home and talk to my husband about that. Like, I'm not sure you really love me.
Until you get a tattoo of my face.
Not even the name.
Right.
Like, we are going, this is like next level stuff right now.
0 to 100, I think.
There's no one's face that I would tattoo.
Right, yeah, no, I wouldn't.
Like, not Martin Luther King, not my children, not my husband, not Gandhi. Like, there's no one's face that will be on my body.
Yeah.
But this relationship better work out because the doctor tattoo off or whatever it's called would have to set aside 2 or 3 days to take that one off.
It would be so painful too.
Well, another relationship has been brewing, Producer Thomas. Dane Cook, who you refer to as a formerly famous comedian.
Formerly famous. He had his heyday almost 2 decades ago.
2 decades?
Not 2 decades. 1 decade.
One decade.
1 decade.
He is the voice of Planes, of Dusty in Planes.
I've not.
I know you're not in the
cinematic
child movie circuit, but he is still famous in my household.
Yeah.
But I don't know that gives him permission to date someone 26 years younger, and not just 26 years younger. So let's put this in perspective. Dane Cook is 45. His girlfriend Kelsey Taylor is 19.
Yeah.
So that's not just younger. That's
teenager.
Like just barely legal.
Yeah.
She is literally a teenager.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of backlash in the media. This was like all over my feed all week.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. I think especially if you're literally a teenager, over a quarter of a century age difference is a little much.
I mean, Dane Cook did get famous by playing colleges, so maybe maybe he kind of thinks he can get back in with the college circuit by dating her. I don't know.
I know this picture we're throwing up right now is really, you can clearly see the age difference.
Yeah, I mean, she literally looks like his child.
Yeah. He could easily be her dad. Like,
that's true.
Yeah, easily.
He could easily be her dad. And yeah, but it seems like they're happy. They go travel the world together. I just wonder what their lifestyle is like because it seems like he's in a different part. She's just building her career. She's just getting to know who she is. And he's in a different phase.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've kind of talked about issues of age difference on the show before, and it's like the most important thing is if you're like, have similar life goals and stuff, but it's just hard to believe that a 45-year-old and a 19-year-old are on the same page in terms of their trajectories.
Right. And I'm not sure how Dane Cook might be, like, it's I don't know that it's helping her career to be dating. I mean, she must really just be in love with him.
Yeah. For one reason.
Girls like funny
Yeah,
guys.
there you go.
Something that's not so funny is this Singles in America study by Match.com. I know, I'm a nerd about this stuff, but I just really geek out on the data because I love knowing what people are really thinking and what behaviors are really happening in dating and relationships today. And Match does this every year. So every February, I look forward to getting these numbers. And it's really extensive. It's far more extensive than we can get into on this show. But what I can tell you that's very interesting is that for the first time, more than half of U.S. singles have tried dating apps, and the internet was the number one place where singles met their last first date. I've been saying it now for 14 years. Finally, my point got across.
Yeah, there you go.
Right? That it works.
You were ahead of the curve.
But there's some interesting data in here about politics and dating. We've talked about this before. I was very shocked to read that most people think that dating someone of a different political affiliation is not that big of a deal, according to this study.
I was very surprised by that because we ran a few stories about how big of a deal it is. So I guess the numbers don't lie, though. If they did this comprehensive study, that I guess it doesn't matter so much.
Yeah, 72% of singles said they would date someone of a different political party.
I don't know.
That's not what I'm seeing.
Yeah, that's not what I'm seeing.
In
but-
my Instagram, people are... You mean at Damona Hoffman? Yes, Instagram at
Oh,
Damona
wow.
Hoffman.
Look at that.
They are... I was just talking about this with someone.
Mhm.
So I'm seeing that people are more polarized right now than they've ever been.
Yeah.
But the numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah.
What do you think is a good... let's see. A good first date. It's funny. There's things that you can win points for. Like if you invite your significant other, a person you're dating, back to your apartment, the best thing that you can do before you get ready for the date is to clean your bathroom.
Yeah, I believe it.
91% of singles said a clean
Overwhelming.
bathroom is a turn on. But most people, of course, will say dirty laundry is a turn off.
I think,
And I'm not talking about the figurative
Right,
dirty
right,
laundry,
right.
like literal dirty laundry.
I think a dirty bathroom would be worse than dirty laundry. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess...
Like if your bathroom's gross, like that says a lot of. I don't know. I think that says something about just grooming, personal grooming. You know.
I agree with you. I agree. And media is a big point with singles today. Turns out if you have HBO or Showtime, you're going to have an average of 14 times more sex.
Those are exclusive channels. Showtime, hard channels
Yeah,
to watch.
let's unpack that for a second. Because why would having HBO and Showtime... Is it because you have to pay extra and therefore...
it's a status symbol.
You're more desirable. But I mean, I don't know if it's... Which came first, the HBO or the sex, you know?
Right.
If it's more about, the age-old saying. If it's more about what that represents, if you have the income...
Maybe people just want to watch Game of Thrones and they don't have it at home and they call up someone and, then
it's
you go...
Netflix and chill, right? Also, people are really into Alexa.
Yeah,
Because
I thought that was
if you
pretty
have
funny.
Alexa in your home, people are turned on, 61%.
Yeah. I don't know. Those personal assistant things creep me out. I'm not a fan of Alexa and all those things.
I haven't gone in too deep
Yeah.
on Alexa, but make sure if you have Alexa that you're using your own internet and not stealing it from your neighbors.
Oh, yes.
I didn't know that was something that people still did,
I know.
but that's the number one tech turnoff for singles today. And when you are moving into having sex with someone, just know that satisfying sex rarely happens spontaneously, according to the Singles in America study. And 14% of singles said bad sex during the first time is a deal breaker, but most people look at it as something that will improve over time. So have no fear if it's bad the first time, just give it another shot. Those are the headlines for today, but that's just the beginning. I am going to introduce my exciting co-hosts for today right after this break. So stay tuned. You're listening to Dates and Mates with Damona Hoffman. Are you struggling to meet singles who you really connect with? You want to find someone who understands you, who fits into your life and enhances it, right? Then Black People Meet could be just the thing you need to make a connection. Black People Meet is the largest dating site for Black singles in the U.S. who are looking for love, friendship, and dates, and is built on a simple principle: creating relationships and connecting lives. With my code, blackpeoplemeet.com/datesandmates, you can set up a profile and enjoy 1 free week of browsing pictures, chatting, flirting, messaging, and going on dates with other Black singles. You know I'm a big fan of online dating. It's how I met my husband 15 years ago, and it's the fastest way to expand your dating pool and find singles who you really connect with. So don't wait. Go to blackpeoplemeet.com/datesandmates to get your 1 week free trial today. That's blackpeoplemeet.com/datesandmates. Welcome back to Dates and Mates, the show where modern love is made simple. My guests this week are near and dear to my heart. Literally, they are part of my family, my in-laws, Lee and Mimi Hoffman. They are celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary in April, and I just thought, what a perfect time to have them on the show to talk about long-term love. Please give big smooches to Lee and Mimi Hoffman. Hi. Oh, Lee and Mimi. I actually talk about you guys on the show a little bit and how lucky I feel to have such wonderful in-laws like the two of you.
Right back at you.
Oh, thanks. I really want to make today's show helpful and give a lot of takeaways for the people that are listening that want the kind of relationship that you have. So let's just begin. I'd love to just hear your love story and where it began. I know it, but the folks at home don't know. How did the two of you meet?
Well, I'll start because I guess I was the initiator.
Ooh, women's lib here.
So I went to a women's college, and when I was a sophomore, I was so tired of going to mixers and blind dates. So there was this mixer coming up at Lee's college at his dorm. Of course, I didn't know it was Lee's dorm. And I was saying to a group of friends in the lounge in my dorm, should I go to the Burton House mixer? And one of them said, oh, go. You know, she came from Yonkers, New York. I came from Yonkers, New York. Turns out Lee came from Yonkers, New York. She said, you know, Lee Hoffman's in that dorm. And when you get to the mixer, ask someone to find Lee Hoffman. And then when you find Lee, ask him to fix you up with somebody.
But that's not how it played out, huh, Lee?
That's not how it played out. This woman came up to me and told me she was from Yonkers and that...
Are you Lee Hoffman? I've been looking for you.
Right. And she found me, and we just started talking. I think one of the things that made it easier for us to talk with each other was that we really had a common community in Yonkers that we could talk about that was really sort of comfortable and not the typical sort of stress,
Getting to know someone and like, oh, what do we talk about? So you already had that shortcut. How long did it take after you met for a relationship to develop? Was it instant? Was it love at first sight?
I would say the relationship started pretty quickly. I wouldn't say it was necessarily love at first sight. We sort of grew on each other for a number of maybe 8 months, 10 months. And then, at least I really thought I was in love at that point.
Oh. Well, but then I heard, Mimi, that it wasn't always smooth. Like at the beginning, there was a little hiccup in the road.
Well, I think that we had a few hiccups in the road. But, I think I knew from the beginning Lee was a strong prospect, And...
Let me ask you a question about that, because I think it's interesting to hear how women are really making decisions about who they want to spend their time with. And when you say he was a good prospect, were you thinking at that point, you're 18, 19 years old? Are you thinking all the way ahead to, okay, he seems like he would be a good partner, a good father, he's smart, he could get a good job. Like, what are you thinking?
Well, you have to go back to, it was 1966. And in 1966, one of the things you were supposed to get when you got married was, in addition to a BS or a BA, they called it an MRS.
Right.
I found that nauseating, but it was part of what you were kind of supposed to be looking for, is a husband.
And what was the criteria that you were evaluating this potential husband on?
So, well, for me, one of the issues, and I think it always is about who were you early on. One of the things that I was early on was my father died of a heart attack when I was 14. So I was definitely looking for longevity. I wanted to have a partner who looked to me like he'd be healthy and live long. And in my opinion, Jewish men didn't do that. I had a bad sampling error, and I knew a few Jewish men who didn't live too long, so I didn't think Jewish men would be a good prospect. So I was very critical of Jewish partners at that point. But the other thing about Lee was he went to MIT. I remembered reading a headline in our local newspaper that he won the science fair contest. He was really smart. He was really sweet, and I could see, and we had this common background, and I could certainly see that it was very comfortable to be with him.
Yeah.
And we'd have to tweak a bunch of things probably, but basically it all felt comfortable.
Lee, what were some of the qualities that you were looking for, and what was it that attracted you to Mimi in the beginning? Same thing or different?
I think I was looking for someone, a woman who would not just be a housewife, who had some drive and sort of wanted to do something independently of, sort of outside of me.
Yeah.
Um,
Kudos to you. You guys
Back
were
in the
like,
day,
yeah. Feminist
I
marriage.
I certainly wanted to be with someone who wanted to have children. I think I wanted to be with someone who sort of came from the same socioeconomic place that I did, which was sort of education is very important, but lower middle class.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because something that I always coach my clients on when they're looking for a partner or building a relationship, I get them to really drill down on what their core values are. What values do you want to share with that partner? And what are your goals for the future? If you're building a life with someone, are you on the same track? And sometimes people, I guess it's not natural a lot of times to think that deeply about what are those values. You just kind of, a lot of people just say, oh, I'll just know when it works. I'll just know. I'm curious how having shared values, it sounds like education was very big to you, and goals for the future, wanting to have a wife that was out doing amazing things in the world, wanting to do amazing things in the world, wanting to do something awesome with your MIT degree. You were building the same life together. But then sometimes people will put having shared interests in that mix of what they're looking for in the partner. And I'm not sure that is as important. So talk to me about how, as you're building this relationship, how important those values and goals for the future were for you, and how important the having shared interests ended up being.
Well, I'll start it with the issue of shared interests, because I think for the early years of our marriage, we both were frustrated about having a fairly small overlap in shared interests. I mean, theater was a big shared interest. We both loved the theater, but Lee didn't really like movies. Well, that was disappointing. And I didn't like golf, and that was probably disappointing. So there were a number of things that in terms of spending really quality time together that we had to work on. But over the years, if we didn't focus on that very much and we discovered we loved being outside in nature. We both did. I think it was something that we wouldn't have really known at 21 that was that important to us. But it became a shared interest. So we loved traveling together. Neither of us had the money to really travel, but when we got to know each other in the beginning. But over the years, that is something we've always looked forward to. But values, I think it was clear in a lot of ways that, in a way, when we looked at each of our families, they had a lot of the same shared values.
Even though you came from different religious backgrounds and the culture was a little bit different, you really got to the root of what your family believed and what was important to them.
Certainly hard work, right? And being thrifty.
Right.
Well, so now, looking back 50 years later, you also have two amazing children, one of whom I'm married to, and they're both in successful marriages, which in today's world we know is not a given.
Yeah.
So clearly you did something right in the child rearing department. You mentioned you were looking for a woman that did want to have a family. Were you conscious of the way that of teaching your kids about communication or relationship building, or is it a surprise to you that both of your kids ended up happily married?
I think for me, I don't think there was certainly there was not a lot of verbal communication about relationship building. I think there was probably communication about my value system. I think that maybe more what I brought was sort of a consistency of behavior. You know, that the way I behaved was something that both of my sons sort of picked up and now have carried on in terms of, you know, really wanting to be with their kids and share with their kids and be with their spouse and have family time. And also, Mimi had a much bigger extended family than I did growing up. But the value of extended family, I think, was also something that was sort of passed on by behavior and not necessarily by verbal discussions.
Anything to add to that?
Sure. You know, when Lee was talking before about having a wife who wanted to do things, not just be a wife, I think what ended up being a bit of a surprise to both of us was that I ended up being one of the founders of a domestic violence shelter and program back in 1979 when they were really new. And that is a challenge to a marriage because you're dealing all the time with men who are really folks that a lot of women wanted to leave. But one of the things that I felt really was important was I really was a feminist then, and I really embraced feminist principles, and I made that an important communication point, and I think Lee really supported me in that. So there's a picture of Seth, which I think you may know, which is in a T-shirt of mine or Lee's, I don't remember whose, that said, men of quality
respect women's equality.
Right.
Yeah, I
which
know
has
it
just
well.
made a big comeback at the Women's March. I saw it there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And on the other hand, when Aaron, Seth's brother, would sometimes come with me to work, I insensitively put him at a little desk where the poster he was facing said, "A woman without a man is like a fish without a bicycle."
It's funny because Seth has said to me, my husband has said that when he went to college, he actually, I think, was looking for his MRS degree. he was a little bit disappointed that he didn't meet someone in college. So maybe he was following your lead there because he was thinking, I'm here. I have a great pool of smart women, and I better lock somebody down before I get out of here. But we met not that long after that. So all is well. I do want to know, 50 years, it's just such an amazing thing to be sitting across from two people that have made this commitment to one another for 50 years, to grow and learn together. I know because you're living it, you're like, okay, yeah, whatever. But really, it is a special thing. Producer Thomas and I are both in awe.
Yes.
And the people at home. What do you appreciate about one another still 50 years later? Like, I know people are still looking to have that spark 10, 20, 30, 40, and now 50 years. There has to be something about your partner that makes you continually curious to keep coming back and keep diving in.
You didn't prep us for that one.
I kind of did. Initially, we were going to say what excites you about the other person. But, maybe excitement is not the word that connects for you. Maybe it's appreciates. Maybe it's what you're curious about.
I can jump in.
Yes.
One of the things that I really, really respect about Lee is that he can change. And that happened, the first time I saw a really big shift was when Seth was little, and Lee needed to learn that it was really important for him when he felt angry to not explode. And it took a lot of work, and it took family therapy. But Lee learned how it really made a difference when he was gentle and tender. And that I never saw someone, and I'm a social worker, so I've seen a lot of people, but I never saw somebody so clearly understand what was important in a relationship and how he needed to deliver on it. And that was early. And I would say there are a lot of times over the years where I had to learn. My takeaway was I can't make someone change. I can't make Lee change. But Lee learned how to change, and I think one of the other big times when he learned to change is in the last number of years when we were getting older, and I'm retired, Lee's close to being retired, and what does it mean for us to be a couple in our late 60s, now in our early 70s? I've really appreciated how he's changed recently in what I would say is, I know now, maybe he always appreciated me. I mean, I always wondered if my mother appreciated me, but and she told her friends she did, but I never really felt it that much. But
you're feeling it now from Lee.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. No pressure.
Yeah.
Can you top
I
that?
think
You could just say ditto. And then
no, I think that certainly the capacity to change and to appreciate the ability of the other person to change is really important. I think that also that as sort of work has become less a part of our lives, we sort of have more time to explore and to do things together that maybe we didn't have before, or I didn't feel like we had the time before. And so it's sort of like it's almost like a new journey. You have this time, what are you going to do with it? And so I think we're sort of exploring that together. And I think we're doing pretty well so far.
I think you're doing great. And I think that's a great message for people who are single, also to remember that relationship building requires change. Sometimes people come to me and they want the relationship, but they want everything in their life to stay the same. And they just want someone to like hop on the merry-go-round with them. And it does require a little bit of change, a little bit of adaptation to be ready for a relationship. And if you are in a relationship right now, hopefully you've heard that message that you have to meet your partner where they are, and both people are changing simultaneously. So it does take some effort and some awareness to be able to grow together, right?
Right.
Yep.
Well, kudos to you on your 50th anniversary.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
We have a cue for that.
We can applaud.
That's a long cue.
Well, what's an exciting event?
It's a very exciting event. And what's also exciting is we have questions from our listeners at home in Technically Dating.
Technically Dating.
And Technically Dating is brought to you in partnership with blackpeoplemeet.com, the premier dating site for Black singles. We have questions today from the Techspert app, which you can get crowdsourced advice on, and then we'll come in and talk about the best and the brightest questions here on Dates and Mates. I'll just start with I'm going to give you like a softball question to start out, okay?
Oh, we're supposed to answer these.
We're answering it all together.
Okay.
You're totally qualified.
All four of us.
Yeah.
All four of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to give advice to the people.
Okay, we'll just do a softball question. The first one is from a female. She asks, what are good ideas for Valentine's Day gifts? What are good ideas for Valentine's Day gifts? Lee and Mimi?
I would say try to find like sort of a unique experience.
That's a good answer.
You stole that from me. Did you read my blog or something?
No.
That's what
I
I
know,
always
that's what you always
say.
say. An experience is more meaningful.
It is. Okay, I second that. Any other ideas? What makes you happy to receive? Hint, hint.
Well, I love to get a really nice card with a really nice message, and every time Lee gives me a card for whatever occasion with a really warm and special message, I love that.
Can I tell you, your son used to be really romantic with Valentine's Day. Back in like the what do they call it? The aughts.
The aughts, yes, the early
Back
aughts.
in the aughts, he was really romantic. The first Valentine's Day we spent together, I was like, I'm not that big into roses. So he took a rose and he took the petals off and wrote a poem for me on the rose petals. I know.
Wow.
So sweet.
It's extravagant.
And then I don't know why I didn't think I should have taken a picture or something of it, but I kept it for a couple days, and then you know what happens to
Yeah,
roses
shriveled
after.
up and-
And then I was like, oh, no, my message. So the next year, he had keys to my apartment, and I came in, and I had this one wall, and he had all of these paper cutout petals, and he wrote a poem on the paper cutout petals. And he said, this year I'm going with rose petals that are a little bit more permanent, like my love for you.
Oh, wow, nice.
I don't think he said a little bit, actually. He just said more permanent, like my love for you. And that was the last time I got a poem. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, it doesn't have to be something really dramatic and expensive. It can be something very thoughtful and experiential. I like that. Okay, Mimi, I'm going to have you help me on this question because this is coming to us from a young lady from Agora Hills, California. She says, how can I be more confident with my body image? Lately, I've been having a hard time, and I want to know what I can do to be more confident. And I think for my work as a dating coach, and even from my own experience, I know body image can really affect how successful someone feels with dating and the results that they get. So, and you have plenty of experience as a social worker. What would you say to this young lady who's having issues with how she feels about her body?
Well, you happened to mention that when you were thinking about what are some of the things we can talk about, and that one came out, and I had no idea if that was really going to be on the show. But what came in my head, which I didn't express at the time, was don't look in the mirror so often. And that I think that's a different approach than you take as a dating coach. But I think that was, for me, going back to those mixers in college, the more I stood in the mirror, looking at the full-length mirror before I went out on a date or the mixer, the more I was self-conscious. And if somehow or other I could find a way to just feel comfortable with who I was right then and there and not be so focused on who I wanted to be, that would be something that I would recommend to other people.
That's so wise. I actually do have my clients do mirror work where they actually stand in the mirror and look until they find what they appreciate about their body. But I I completely hear your perspective as well, because I think for some people that is really intense. That is just way too intense. And it's our nature to go to the things that we don't like. Oh, my fat roll's hanging out over there, or oh, my butt's too big. And so I think there is learning in being able to look at the thing that you nitpick, and instead of looking for the things that are wrong with it, search for the things that are right. But it does take a lot of practice, and you kind of, I think the confidence has to be built out in the world in a way, because if you're just standing in the mirror yourself, it's really easy to go inward and start to judge. But, as you're going out to these mixers and not looking in the mirror so much, seeing that you're getting attention from wonderful guys gives you the message, no, your body is fine the way it is, and you don't have to fixate so much on it.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
So, again, because I come from so many years back, when I was in my 20s, the women's movement had CR groups, which was called, that's short for consciousness raising groups. So I was in a group with probably about 10 other women, and there were certain things that it was kind of scripted that we talked about each week. I guess we got together weekly. And one of the groups was about body image, because that was a really new issue for women then. And I remember what was really great is if someone said something like, or it might have been me, like, my boobs are too big. Someone else in the room would say, oh my God, if I only had that problem. And it was a great way to put it all in perspective.
Yeah, I would say that Dates and Mates is sort of like a CR group. Hopefully we're raising your consciousness here. Yeah, and the other thing that's a factor now that wasn't a factor 50 years ago is social media. It's just so it's so injurious to the female psyche, and there's men with body image issues as well that see all the perfect abs and the coiffed hair and the filters, and nobody on Instagram is looking the way they really look IRL. And I would encourage her also to follow some body positive people on Instagram that can give her the constant message to uplift. I would bet that there are people that she's following or things that she's looking at that are continuing to reinforce this feeling of not being enough, not looking the right way. And just remember, like, it's all smoke and mirrors. it's a lot of it's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and you cannot compare yourself to what you're seeing there, because a lot of the people that put out a certain image, that's not even who they are anyway, right?
It's very calculated.
It's very calculated. Exactly. Okay. Lee, I'm going to get you back in the mix here. We have a female who's 23 from Los Angeles. She says, I recently went on 2 dates with someone who texted me he just wants to be friends and can't be in a serious relationship with me right now. She says she feels awful. She feels like she can't get into a relationship and she doesn't want to end up alone. She's 23. Do you think, is she on the road to being a spinster here?
if you'd asked me that at the age I was when I got married, I might have said, maybe you have a couple more years. But I think now I would say a lot of people your age are not looking for what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe as other people mature and time goes on, you'll find more people that you're simpatico with.
Right. Maybe she should date Dane Cook.
There you go. He's looking.
Yeah, he's in a different phase. I mean, that might be true as well, because I was always a little bit more mature. And I actually almost missed Seth online because I was thinking I needed to date older men. And I was dating a year to 10 years older. I was looking. And then here was this guy my own age that wanted a relationship and the things that I did. And I was like, what? I don't know how to compute this. But she might have a different experience if she is dating older guys. But also, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Like, you went on 2 dates with this guy. You don't know if he's the one after 2 dates anyway. So that drive to be in a relationship, I think, causes some people to beat themselves up and also to make poor decisions. Just because that guy, you were attracted to him, if he's rejecting you after 2 dates, he's not the one. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to die alone and that you will never find someone else. It means, thank you, rejection is God's protection. Set that guy aside and go back out and look for someone else that you really can connect with. And I know it feels crappy to get rejected. I know she feels awful.
But also, it's not a reflection of her.
It's not that's what I was going to say. It's not about you. It may be about you. But I from this information, I cannot tell whether it is about you or not. I would say if it's the same pattern every time, if people always go on 2 dates with you and then send you a text, you might want to look at what you're doing on that second date. She did something right because she got from the first date to the second date. But if there's a pattern, look at what you're saying on the second date, what you're doing on the second date, and maybe it is that drive towards a relationship that's coming on a little bit too strong that needs to be adjusted. We talked about change earlier. But maybe it's just that's not the guy, or he's not ready, or, you just need to keep with it. But don't give up hope. You're only 23. Your whole life is in front of you. Do we have time for one more question?
Yeah, I think we do.
One.
We got time.
I don't know if we can go too deep on this one. No, there's one I'll save for another time. Okay, this one. She says, this is a gal who's 19. She says, I'm currently dating this girl. We've been dating for 6 months, and I love her a lot, and things are moving very fast between us, and she wants me to move across country with her. At first, I was up for it, but now I've changed my mind, and I don't want to leave my family. Also, I'm starting to have feelings for someone else. And I don't know whether or not I can break up with her or even just tell her I don't want to move. What is this girl to do? She has this invitation to move across country. She doesn't want to go. How can she express this, Mimi?
How can she express to him that her?
It's 2 gals.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they she wants to move it to the next level, but her girl wants to move it to the next level. I feel like if she's already having feelings about somebody else,
right,
and you don't want to leave your family, you don't want the same things. It goes back to what we were saying earlier, right?
I agree.
Goals for the future. My goal is not to move across country. Unfortunately, that might be the end of this relationship if it's that important to this person. But if you're having feelings about somebody else, that's not going to...
Right. I mean, and I think maybe the one who wants to move cross country maybe really wants to get a sense of how committed are you to me.
Ooh, it's like it's a test.
Maybe
it's a test.
Or it's not a test she planned on, but it's a test that's part of her reality right now.
And I would say honesty is just the best policy. If you can just rip the Band-Aid off and tell her how you feel, it's better than stringing her along. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining me, Lee and Mimi Hoffman.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it was great.
Dates and Mates wishes you a very happy 50th anniversary on April 7th, which I could say I share an anniversary date with them.
There you go.
But we're only coming up on 11. Yeah. Yep. Seth didn't let me know that was the date when we planned the day. But I'm happy to share, honored to share.
Well, we love
your
it
legacy.
too. And it's so easy to remember your anniversary.
There you go.
I know. There you go.
It's so easy to remember ours.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Exactly. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank my friends at blackpeoplemeet.com, the premier online dating site for black singles. You can get your free 1-week trial at blackpeoplemeet.com. facebook.com/dates and mates. And also thank you to our listeners. Make sure that if you love the show, you tell somebody, and please leave us a review. We love to hear which segments you love, which guests you love. So please leave us a review. Let us know what you think of the show. And don't forget to download the Textpert app so you can post your questions and dole out some advice of your own. Next week's guests are Orna and Matthew Walters, love experts in love, and they're going to join me for our special Valentine's Day show. Until next week, I wish you happy dating.